This is the story of the kimchi killer. There is a specific scent that humans give off when they die that's often described as rotting meat, but with a very specific, very nauseating, almost syrupy sweet floral undertone that makes you want to bend over and puke. And they smelt that in that unit. The apartment was on the second floor. The third floor neighbors right on top of the stinky apartment, and the first floor neighbors right below the stinky apartment, they had it the worst. But that's not why neighbor Sam called emergency services. I mean, he wished he could. He called 112 because there was a kid crying in that stinky apartment all day long, all night long. When the police get there for a wellness check, Chiho, the little boy, this is not his real name, but we're gonna call him Chiho, he was cowering in the corner of the room. Officer Jun scoops up little Chiho and he's taken straight to the hospital. So Chiho is left in the care of the doctors while the police start combing through the apartment. They speak with the neighbors who stated, I think it was just him and his mom. I think those are the only people that live in there, like full time. And since the kid was found crying alone in the apartment, the police safely assumed maybe the mom died. Maybe the mom had a stroke and died inside the apartment somewhere, and because the kid was scared, he never left, he just cried and never let anyone in. I mean, it's devastating, but it makes sense. Add to that, the officers stated that when they walked in to find the little boy, they knew someone died in that apartment. So they're like, okay, well, we gotta go back in and search for the mom because what if she's there? They open up the door, and in the center of the room, just in plain view, like think about how odd this is. Think about you go into someone's home, you push open a door, and this is what you see. A 4-foot red kimchi bucket in the middle of the room. You're like, that, in no world would that make sense in my head where I'm not like, oh, I should ask them what that's for. It's so unsettling. And the bucket was filled with this mysterious, thick, viscous liquid, is how it's described. And on top was a floating body part. The bucket was nearly filled to the lid with a liquid that was most likely a direct result from decomposition. And because of that, they needed to take the whole bucket into evidence to look through it and try and ID the bodies. The bucket thankfully didn't have any kimchi in it. That was like a big thing. People were like, was she making kimchi out of them? Or like, what was happening? So she wasn't like making kimchi out of them. So there were two objectives now for the police. We gotta find the mom. And they find out through the apartment lease that her name is Lee Sejong. So they're like, we gotta find Sejong. And then we gotta ID the bodies in the bucket. So there were two bodies. One was considered a partially decomposed body, and then underneath that was some plastic tile, like flooring, and then a badly decomposed body. It was gonna be a rough time for investigators to ID the bodies, but they knew right off the bat that both of these bodies, both of these victims were men, which means Chiho's mom is alive. And that also means, since they were found in her apartment, Sejong is the #1 suspect.